Hey, this is Nick Capozzi from SalesPitching.com. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my really good friend, Scott Ferguson.
Time to Shine Today, podcast Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson, and I got my boy that has probably just as much, if not more, energy than I do. Nick Capozzi, that's 1P, 2 Z's. He's a rock star salesperson, but he does it on the platform of building rapport. He doesn't go in for the kill like we would say in sales. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's there to level up his game and make a sale, but he does it through building rapport. And the knowledge nuggets he's about to feed you, if you're in sales, break out your notebooks because you're going to want to take some mega notes, just like I did. I think I have 2.5 pages of notes just from this interview alone. So without further ado, here's my really good friend, Nick Capozzi from SalesPitching.com. Let's level up. Time to Shine Today, podcast Varsity Squad. This is Scott Ferguson. And a lot of people say, Fergie, you have the energy. You have what it takes to get people's attention, bro, or squad. I'll tell you right now, this guy, Nick Capozzi, has forgot more about pitching and selling from a place of service than I'll ever know. And if you have a company and you're really, with sales consulting, high converting video sales, sales training, you need to quickly turn around your results from strategy development to recruitment to sales training. Nick offers bespoke consulting options to optimize your sales fast. Everyone talks about leads and closing, but who's talking about your sales pitch? You know who is? My boy, Nick. So Nick, come on, introduce yourself to Time to Shine Today podcast Varsity Squad. But first, what's your favorite color and why?
Powder blue. Oh, I didn't know this was coming because of my Montreal Expos. How about that?
I love it, man. I love it. I hope Montreal gets a team back, man. I loved watching the Expos back in the day, brother.
Well, that's my goal, man. If Gary V is going to buy the Jets, I want to bring the Montreal Expos back. That's my goal.
Gary Carter was the catcher for the Expos back when I was a kid, and he was my favorite player growing up, right? And like I have my whole wall behind me is Gary Carter stuff, and his family down here in South Florida, my clients, I help them out with all their real estate. So I kind of love the Expos there. Andre Dawson, back in the day, even I don't know if you remember Moses Alou Moses Alou, he turned his ankle when he was an Expo. His ankle was turned off his foot. And I just remember that, dude. It's amazing. That's awesome. You're a Spurs fan. But man, hey, thanks for coming on, brother. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Fergie. Are you kidding me, man? I'm on Fergie's podcast. Time to shine. I'm excited.
You're crazy. I love it, man. Let's get to the origins of Nick, and kind of work our way up into the sales pitching and whatnot. But I want to get that origin story first, brother.
All right, man. So here it is. I'll give it to you in like 45 seconds. Grew up in Montreal. I knew two things when I was a kid. One, I hated winter. Two, I was going to be the play-by-play voice of the Montreal Expos. Everything I did was to get me into this one radio program in Toronto. Got into it, was in radio and TV in Canada for 5 years. And then one day at a party, someone goes, yo, man, can you do that radio thing on a stage? I'm like, yeah. Next thing I know, I'm stepping onto a cruise ship in Miami. I spent 20 years in the cruise business. I actually lived on cruise ships for 10 years. Sidebar, I could be a Netflix original series just sitting on a couch telling you stories that will blow your mind.
I bet.
But what we did, Fergie, was we were pitch people. So we would get on stage in front of 500 people and we would live pitch all the duty free, like 60 products in 60 minutes, from Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee and Mexican vanilla up to Swiss watches, which were duty free, all the way up to high end jewelry. And people don't understand how big duty free is. So that was it, man. That was my background. I was a radio guy, became a cruise guy, got out about a year ago and just started posting content on LinkedIn about sales and how to use video and how to prospect, how to build rapport and relationships. Yeah. And it just went like this, man. And now I'm sitting here. I used to listen. Now I'm actually here, man.
Dude, I love your videos. And squad, you have got, they'll be in the show notes. You got to go to Sales Pitching on YouTube. And also his website as well, which is salespitching.com. Fantastic content from Nick. So Nick, what do you think makes a great, I don't know how to add, like a great sales pitcher? What do you think makes one?
Building rapport. That's what it comes down to. People buy from people they like. We hear that all the time, right?
Sure.
But people like people who like them, right? So anytime I get on any conversation, or if I'm going to send a prospect a video, what I'll do is I'll spend a minimum of 2 to 3 minutes. I budget this time, 2 to 3 minutes going through people's LinkedIn profiles to find the Easter eggs, right? And people are like, okay, where they're from, where they went to school. It gets way more layered than that. I'll just give you an example. One of the things I always do that people brush off, I look at mutual connections. We assume it's industry people, but almost every person I look at, there's a random connection. I'm like, how did they know that person? I've met people who worked with family members, who worked with people I worked with in the cruise business. I met a guy I grew up with on the same street in Montreal, and we didn't even put two and two together until way later. And if you want an ally when you're trying to sell something, Fergie, find that kind of mutual connection, right?
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Because it can, are you saying it kind of as a point of like a warm introduction possibly to the person you're trying to sell?
No, but let's say I want to send you a direct message, right? So let's say I rip off a piece of paper and I'm gonna do a video and I'm gonna put your name right on it. I'll be like, hey, Fergie, how's it going? So you know that it's directed to you. And I'll say, hey man, listen, I was listening to your podcast today and you mentioned that you knew, Bobby. Do you actually know Bobby? Like, how do you know Bobby? Because I went to high school with Bobby, right? So it's not even, I'm not talking about what I sell. I'm not talking about what I do.
That's awesome.
I'm like, how do you know Bobby?
Dude, you're building rapport on something that's common ground, right?
But that's it. And that's why, Scott, it's what I had to do in the cruise business, because you ever cruise, man?
Oh yeah, I love it. I live like just north of Miami, so we try to catch even the Palm Beach, out of the port of Palm Beach, you try to catch even a weekend cruise, man.
100%. But if you get on a cruise for the first time or any time, you're blown away by the ship, right? Like the hardware is amazing. And when I was selling duty free, I'm like one of 12 revenue departments. You're more interested in the spa and the casino. And also, if you're coming from up north and it's January, you're like, oh my gosh, the sun, look, it's the sun. Wow.
Right.
So I had 18 hours from the minute you stepped on the ship to get you into my presentation in the dark theater on the first day at sea when we're halfway past the Bahamas. And how I did that was, where are you from? Oh, you're wearing a, University of Wisconsin jersey. Hey, did you see that Jonathan Taylor just got drafted? How do you think he's going to do? Right. And it was just those quick rapport building things. And why I had to master it, it wasn't even strategic at the time. My crew that worked for me on ships were Serbian and Indian and South African. So how do I teach someone from Belgrade how to build a relationship with Diane from Des Moines, Iowa in seconds?
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's also, that rapport building skill is key. So then when you're teaching people within salespitching.com about pitching, is there any secret sauce, if you don't mind sharing, to help them maybe find their blind spots when they're going to be working out and pitching people?
100%, man. You got to watch your tape. And, the way that it used to work was we would record these presentations. And like I started this in 2000, people used to FedEx me their VHS tapes from the coast of Japan. And I'd sit there like an offensive coordinator in football on Monday and I would break through the tape. And the reality is that I would give feedback, but the people who excelled were the ones that took what I said, watch your own tape, watch your own videos. You'll find your flaws so quickly. It's very uncomfortable, but it becomes much more comfortable the more you do it. And you'll start to find those things. And then when people say, yeah, but Nick, I'm in that sensitive industry, I can't record my Zoom meetings, or my prospect, I want them to feel comfortable. No worries. Open up a Word document, click dictate. And if you talk for 30 minutes, you're going to get an 8-page document. And what that's going to do is going to show you all your blind spots, all your crutch words. Oh, shoot, I was supposed to say B before C, but I didn't. Right. So it's that practice and that repetition. It's just like sports, man. If you want to be a good hitter, you got to get in that cage every day and take those cuts.
The reps, man. The reps are freaking important. So when you're bringing people in, maybe you're in the discovery process of them hiring salespitching.com.
Yep.
Is there any good question that you wish they would ask you but never do?
Man, that's a good question right there. How about that?
Time to shine.
Yeah, time to shine. No doubt. Okay, what they should ask me is will this work if I put in the effort? And the reason is that, I've learned a long time ago in a lot of industries I was in, not everyone puts in the work, right? Yeah, I can lead you to water. I can get you the bucket. I can get you a Brita to filter the water. I can put her on a table, put a bouquet of flowers. It's ready to drink. But if you're not ready to actually put in the work, and it's not that it's a lot of work, but it works. So if you put in the work, it will work. And I just wish people were maybe it's, I don't want to say straighter with me, but it's like, how serious are you about this? Because I can make you great, but I need to know that you're committed.
Dude, it is so funny you just said that, because I just moved over to another jiu-jitsu, and I trained under a guy for years, and now I'm on another mat. And I asked him basically, what do you expect of me? And he's like, are you ready to work? And I'm like, dude, I'll put the reps in, man. He goes, and let's get after it. Cause you want to get on the mat back, I'll be 50 pretty soon. I want to get into that back on the mat in the competition. That's awesome that you said that, man. So what do you think then is one thing that people must misunderstand about Nick the most?
You know what? I don't think there's a lot of misconceptions about me, because I'm not afraid to tell you exactly what I think, but it's all those years as being like a hotelier with my name badge on, right? Where I know how to do it in a very polite way. So I'll give it to you. And I judge my audience, right? I got to read my audience. If I'm talking to you, I'm going to give you critique or feedback differently than I'm going to give someone who maybe is, a little bit more sensitive. And that's fine. I can work with that. I've worked with all kinds of people from all over the world. But I think that's, what it comes down to is, how you deliver the message and how you build people up, right? Because I'm going to give you some vinegar. There's no doubt. I can't work with you and build you if I can't give you vinegar, but I'll give you all the sugar too. I'll tell you all the things you're doing well. I'll give you all the pats on the back, and I'll give you that motivation to actually help you cross the line.
Love it, man. That's key, because you're hitting it from both angles. That's what is needed, especially because people, we're told no, according to Shad Helmster, that wrote What People Say When They Talk to Themselves. You were told no as children by the age of 13, 135,000 times in most households. So, getting to that yes, a lot of times people are afraid, man. So what's your secret sauce about maybe helping people get over that hump of fear when they're about ready to pitch?
Practice
Reps,
in front of
baby.
practice in front of a mirror, right? And this sounds silly, and you've heard this technique before, but a quick story. I had this big guy. He was a big guy like us, although I will never get on the mat with you, man, because you'll crush me. But this was like a big 6'6", 280-pound Canadian guy, right?
Right.
And he was big and rugged, but we were selling like high-end jewelry. And I'm like, okay, Bobby, here's what I need you to do. Bobby, what I need you to do is, when you're talking about jewelry, I need you to really highlight the beautiful elements of it. You can still be that big guy, but I need you to talk in a beautiful way, right? Like a raspberry red in that ruby. So I made this big guy who didn't want to do it. I stood him in front of a mirror, and I sat there with him for 2 hours. And he was looking at me. I'm like, don't look at me. Look at the mirror. Say it again. Say the script again. Say the script again. When you talk from a place of knowledge and you can acknowledge how you're delivering it, it's easy, right?
Bro.
Because the person on the other end, Scott, they're not prepped like that. They're not ready to do that. They're blown away by you.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I had to really learn before, because I'm 6'1", I'm 260, and I'm kind of put together pretty good, and I come off as intimidating. And if I ever like a resting bitch face, for lack of a better term, it's like people will be like automatically turned off. So I hear what you're saying. I do a lot of reps in front of the mirror myself. I have a mirror right up in front of me looking at me, dude.
No
so
way.
If I look above the camera, I see that, hey, man, I'm smiling. I'm paying attention to what Nick says. That's fantastic. So you saw the movie Back to the Future, of course, right?
Sure.
All right. So let's get in that DeLorean. Let's go back in time to the 22-year-old Nick. What kind of knowledge nuggets, we call him here, knowledge nuggets you dropping on Nick to help him level up, blast through, shorten his learning curve?
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, right? Because everyone's got that fear at the beginning. It's all going to work out. If you do it, if you put in the time, it's going to work out. That's definitely one of them. 2 is something I wound up doing. Think globally, right? Think on a global perspective. Now I'm a Canadian, but I'm also a proud American living here in Phoenix, Arizona. And one thing that I find in this amazing culture that we live in here is we think a lot about America. But when we think on a global perspective, right? So I was training someone the other day, and, really bright girl. And I said, you have a secret weapon. She said, what's that? I said, you've traveled to 60 countries, right? It's in there on her LinkedIn. She's like, yeah.
Right.
I'm like, probably 1 out of 3 people that you're talking to in these demos wasn't born in America, right? So if you go through their LinkedIn profile, it's like, hey, you know what? I noticed you went to the University of whatever in Slovenia, right? I actually traveled through Slovenia. I went there. You know what blew my mind? The tile on the whatever it is, right?
Right.
So it's just it's thinking globally and understanding that even though we live in America, if you step into someone else's shoes from a global perspective and look at it, it's going
Yeah.
to change the dynamic, and people buy from people they like people who like them. It all weaves together.
Would that Nick have listened?
No.
No, me neither, bro. Anything at 22, and I'm not gonna say I knew everything, but I was very stubborn about taking in new content. So, all right, how do you want your?
But you know how I would have listened. Sorry,
Yeah.
Scott.
Oh, you're
Let me go
good.
down this way. I was thinking about this the other day because my grandfather was a politician in Montreal. My father was a very charismatic, or still is a very charismatic gentleman. And I learned all these things from osmosis, but I was 22. I didn't want to hear it. And actually, when I was 24, I got on Celebrity Cruise Lines, and there was this hotel executive who was just like my father and my grandfather. And he was doing a brand transformation for this high-end cruise line. Celebrity's a great cruise line.
Right.
And when it was coming from him, I took it differently. It was all the same things that my father, my grandfather said, but when I heard it from a different voice, who wasn't the guy who said no to me 135,000 times as a kid, flip the script.
Dude, it's awesome that you say that, because it's like if you were to come to my house with a friend, right? And you walk in, I'll hop up. Nick, what's up? Hey, Jeremy, nice to meet you. Nick, thanks for bringing over. Do you want a beer? You'd be like, yeah, I'll take a beer. Jeremy, you want a beer? Awesome. But if you were to come over yourself and you'd walk in and be like, got a beer, Ferg? I'd be like, you know where the freaking fridge is, Nick? You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's the same thing when your family's trying to tell you something. You love them, but you don't really you respect them in a sense. I mean, you respect them, but you don't respect them. That's awesome that you brought that up. That was fantastic. Thank you for saying that. So, Nick, how do you want your dash remembered, man? How do you want that little line in between your incarnation date and your expiration date? How do you want that life and death date? How do you want that Nick's dash remembered, bro?
He was approachable. That's it. Approachable.
I love it, man.
Do I make it easy for you to come and talk to me? If you come to my house and there's 30 people that are at my party and you're the one person I don't know and you don't know anyone, how do I land that plane for you? How do I make it easy for you?
Oh, dude, man, that is awesome. That is awesome. So, what keeps Nick up at night?
Oh man, you know what keeps me up at night is that tombstone gonna say approachable. Am I practicing what I'm preaching? Right. Because that's important to me, man. That's just something I grew up with. Like I grew up in an Italian-Irish household, but my extended
that's a tough one, man.
Right.
Yeah.
But here's what I will tell you, man. I'll give you a great hack. Some of the biggest victories I ever had in my life, it's because I took one of these index cards right here and I wrote the goal down and I stuck it onto my ceiling in my bedroom, right above me. So I would fall asleep to it every night and I would wake up to it every morning. And if I couldn't fall asleep, I was staring at that goal. So at least if I couldn't sleep, subconsciously, I'm still absorbing the target. And you know what? If where we needed to be was here, and this was my target, but by looking at that index card every night, I only got to here. I mean, I still lapped where I wanted to be.
Love that, man. So what's the worst advice you've ever been given in sales?
The worst advice I've ever been given in sales. Oh man, I could give you a ton, buddy. Man. You know what it is? Jumping right into, hey, let me sell you something, right?
Yes.
The only exception I'm going to do for that, and I cannot tell you how much respect I have for door knockers. Someone coming to sell me something and knock on my door, and I'll be in my office and I'll look at the ring, my ring doorbell, and if it's someone selling me something, I will go down and I will give them the courtesy of listening to their pitch. Because if they're out there in 120 degrees in Phoenix, Arizona in the summer, and I'm going to listen to their pitch, I'll critique it, and if I like them, I'll give them my card. I've hired people off door knocking.
I love it. So, yeah, and you might even get a client out of it. That's to help them nail it. So, what is Nick's definition of a life well lived?
Oh man, this is like the best interview questions I've been hit with in a while. You know what? Do I have choices? Do I have options? My dad drilled into me a long time ago. Money's a short-term motivating factor. Does money motivate me? Yes. But the trip, the voyage, the living in the now, the enjoying every day, this is fun for me. I'm not here promoting. I'm here because I want to talk to you, man. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's so, do I have options? Do I have choices? For me, the way I'm wired, that's all I want. I could live in a 2-bedroom apartment and as long as there's enough room for me and the kids. And I'm cool with that. I don't need something bigger than that. But am I living, what I'm pitching? You know what I
Got
mean?
it. No, I love that. Are you being an imposter? You're actually that person. That's fantastic. So what's your family like? Are you like the Nick that I love? I know off camera you and I are still both boisterous and fired up.
Yep.
Are you the same at home?
Yeah, I am. Usually by like my day starts early. I like getting up at like 4 or 5 in the morning. So by
Well,
6, I might be on the couch, might be playing a little NHL, EA if my wife will let me get away with it. But this is how I live, man. And I'll tell you how deep I go with it. And this came from wearing again a name badge, right? Royal Caribbean, Holland America, Norwegian, Disney. And when I'm at a grocery store, I see hey Scott, thank you very much. At Starbucks,
yeah,
hey,
me too, dude. Yes.
Adriana, I appreciate you making my coffee today. Because what did I do? I gave that person a little tiny bit. Maybe they didn't need it. Maybe they didn't notice it. But there's always that you give them a little boost, a little extra pep in their step, right?
Yeah. Dude, my girlfriend, we first started dating a couple years ago, she would always be like, why do you ask the waitress her name? I'm like, because that's her name, man. You're giving it. Yeah. And she at first she kind of was like, oh, dude, is he trying to, be a little skeevy and like meet a new woman? Like, no, man, I don't care if it's a dude or a girl. The first thing they say, what do you like to drink? And I'm like, what's your name? Just so I know. So I'm not saying, hey, get our waitress. So no, I'm the same way, man. The name, you call someone by their name, it means more than you'll ever know,
Yep.
So because it's a point of respect. And hey, we are back with my boy Nick Capozzi from SalesPitching.com, and we're going to move into our leveling up lightning round here as we wind things down a little bit. And Nick, we got 5 or 6 questions we're going to ask you. You and I can talk 15, 20 minutes, even an hour on each one, but you got 5 seconds, and all of them can be answered. No explanations. You ready to rock?
I'm so jacked up for this. Let's go.
Let's do it. All right. What's the best leveling up advice Nick's ever received?
Just show up. Just show up every fucking day. Show up every fucking day ready to work.
All right. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
Putting those notes, those targets on my ceiling. Yes. That's huge. I cannot stress that enough.
Other than salespitching.com and, of course, timetoshinetoday.com, a shameless plug, what website do you like to go to level up and kind of just get rocking?
You know what? I like newsletters. I like The Hustle. The Hustle's fantastic.
Yes. Yes. Love it.
Hustle's great. Let's go with The Hustle.
Hustle's fantastic, man. So I'm in my doldrums and walk around. You feel my vibe. You think, man, Fergie needs to dig into something. What book are you handing me?
I'm not handing you a book. I'm handing you Spotify. What's your favorite song?
Love it. Love it. Love it. Your most commonly used emoji?
The laughing, and I'm 44. I need to up my emoji. You know what I need?
Straight up laughing or the side laughing?
Straight up laughing. I'm waiting for the baby Yoda emoji. When that comes out, everything I'm going to say is, this is the way.
I love it. I love it. So no bullshit me here, man. If you could stay one age physically for the rest of your life and still keep all the knowledge you've garnered and still continue to build experience and get knowledge, what age physically would it be?
27.
Love it. Dude, I say 28 to 32 every freaking time. Nick, quickly, who's made the most profound impact on your life?
Other than friends and family, Gary Vaynerchuk.
There you go. Gary V. Favorite charity or organization you like to give your time or money to?
Goodwill.
Love it. Last question.
Step up.
What's that?
Helping people step up.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. So you can elaborate a little bit on this one. It's our last question, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
So I grew up in Montreal, and we didn't have like the American music, right? Like, and there's a rule called CanCon. A certain amount of radio content in Canada has to be Canadian. So growing up in the mid 90s at high school in Montreal, when West Coast gangster rap came out, and then Seattle grunge, I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the Judgment Night, oh man, this is a reference. The Judgment Night movie soundtrack was this mashup of all these hip hop groups and all these heavy metal and grunge acts. Judgment Night soundtrack. If you are from that generation and you don't remember that, Do yourself a favor. Do that.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, man. I love that transition from the 80s to the 90s. Me, I'm more of an 80s baby. I'm coming up on 50 years old, but like the 80s had my rap, it had hair bands, glam rock. To me, they had that, but then we rolled into the garage bands and then the grunge, like you said, with like Blink 182 and then Nirvana. That's fantastic. Pearl Jam. So Nick, how can we find you, brother?
On LinkedIn, Nick Capozzi, Capozzi, and SalesPitching.com. YouTube channel is going to be up in a couple weeks, but definitely LinkedIn and SalesPitching.com.
Love it. I love it. And all of those will be in the show notes, squad. So Nick, leave us with one last knowledge nugget that you'd like us to take with us, internalize, and take action on.
Turn on a camera, get two $35 softbox lights, get a $70 really good webcam with a lens, and shoot yourself. Video yourself, practice, and put it out to the world. You want traction, you want to grow your business, you want to grow your brand, you want to grow your services. I don't care if you're in real estate, financial services, or the CEO of a company, turn the camera on, put it out there.
That's just freaking awesome. And squad, you have just got a free masterclass from my boy, Nick Capozzi. That's 1P, 2 Z's. And, two things: he hated the winter and he wanted to be an Expos play-by-play announcer. He did the second best thing of going on cruise ships and help people level up. He believes in building rapport. People like people who like them. If you're looking in sales, look for mutual connections and maybe build a relationship with a person that has a mutual connection to you. Like he was talking about, someone might be a Wisconsin fan, go out there and talk about the latest trade or the latest draft pick. He's going to tell you to watch your tape, get feedback from someone like Nick. Let me make that warm introduction to you, get the feedback and to work to level up on your flaws. And if you're working with a coach, ask the coach, will this work if I put in the effort? And the coach should say, are you going to put in the effort? You do it, it's going to be a marriage made in heaven. That's fantastic. You got to remember that when you're working with a coach, he's going to give you some vinegar, but if a good coach is going to give you a little sugar, he's going to work you up, pat your back a little bit. And that's exactly what kind of Nick does. He's going to give you that vinegar so you can work on those flaws. He's going to tell you reps, 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 get in front of the mirror and do your reps. He's going to say like to his younger self, don't be afraid. And like we say here at Time to Shine today, do it scared. And also to think big, think globally, grow, grow, grow. He's going to be remembered as someone that is approachable, and he is, dude. Whenever I meet with him, he's like, Fergie, and I just freaking love it. Even if I didn't know this guy, I would get along with him in a room. Get something like a gold card like Nick has, man. He looks at the ceiling, and he has that subconscious. Remember, our conscious mind's a gatekeeper. The subconscious mind is what's going to drive you and push you. So get that subconscious mind going. And remember, the options and choices are key. And enjoy that journey while you're going through life. Show up every day, and again, reps, reps, reps. And that's what my boy, Nick Capozzi, that's 1P, 2 Z's. And he's a good friend of mine. And I want him to introduce you to him. He levels up his life. He levels up his health, his wealth. He's humble yet hungry. Nick, thank you so much for coming on. You're a rock star. I'm just baffled, and I can't wait to do some more collaborations in the future, brother. Thank you.
Fuck yeah.
Awesome. See you, brother.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you're a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.